The first time I saw Lily, she was sitting on a cardboard box outside a grocery store, holding out one tiny hand to strangers and asking if they could spare her something to eat. 18 years later, that same little girl stood in the doorway of my kitchen wearing a college sweatshirt, tears in her eyes, while a woman I'd never met waited in a black limousine outside my house. The woman was Lily's biological mother. And she had come to take my daughter back. Not with police. Not with threats. With money. So much money that, for the first time in 18 years, I wondered whether love could actually lose to a bank account. My name is Evelyn Parker. I was 36 years old the day I met Lily. I remember the date because I had written it on the back of a grocery receipt that stayed in my purse for years. October 17th. It had been raining that afternoon, the kind of cold autumn rain that made the parking lot shine under the gray sky. I'd stopped at a grocery store after work because my refrigerator contained half a carton of milk, 2 eggs, and a jar of mustard I was pretty sure had expired. I was divorced. I worked as an administrative assistant at a small medical billing company. I didn't have children. I didn't have a large house. I didn't have much money. But I had a little apartment, a dependable car, and a life that was ordinary enough that I sometimes wondered whether anyone would notice if I disappeared for a week. Then I saw her. She was sitting beside the grocery store entrance. 4 years old. Maybe 5. Tiny. Her brown hair was tangled from the rain, and she wore a yellow sweater that was much too thin for the weather. One shoe was missing. She wasn't crying. That was the part that frightened me. She was simply asking people for food. Can you buy me a sandwich? Most people walked past. Some shook their heads. One man told her to move. A woman handed her a few coins without stopping. The little girl looked at the coins, then looked back at the woman. Thank you. Her voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. I stopped walking. I don't know why. Maybe because she looked too small to be alone. Maybe because she didn't seem surprised that adults were ignoring her. Or maybe because there was something about the way she watched every person who walked through those doors. She wasn't looking for money. She was looking for someone who might care. I walked toward her. Sweetheart? She looked up. Her eyes were enormous. Are you hungry? She nodded. When did you last eat? She shrugged. That answer broke something inside me. I crouched beside her. Where's your mommy? She pointed toward the parking lot. She's coming. I looked around. There were dozens of cars. No one was coming. What is your name? Lily. Lily what? She frowned as if the question were difficult. Lily. Okay, Lily. Do you know where your mommy is? She shook her head. I called store security. Within minutes, the police arrived. And that's when I learned that Lily's situation wasn't a simple case of a mother being late. There was no mother waiting around the corner. There was no family member coming to pick her up. There was a woman listed as Lily's temporary caregiver, but that woman had disappeared 2 days earlier. Lily had apparently been moving between apartments, motels, and occasionally strangers' homes for months. No one knew where her biological mother was. No one knew why she had left her. And Lily knew almost nothing about the woman who had given birth to her. That night, I went home alone. I made myself dinner. I watched television. I took a shower. And then I sat on the edge of my bed and cried for a little girl I'd known for less than an hour. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility. I told myself social services would handle it. I told myself there were people trained for this. But the next morning, I called the number the officer had given me. I asked about Lily. She's in temporary foster care, the woman told me. Is she okay? There was a pause. She's physically safe. I didn't know why those words bothered me so much. Maybe because being physically safe wasn't the same as being loved. I asked if I could visit. 3 days later, I sat across from Lily in a small room filled with plastic toys. She looked at me and smiled. "You came." I swallowed. "Of course I came." She held up a toy phone. "I was calling you." I laughed. "You were?" She nodded seriously. "You didn't answer." I remember thinking that, somehow, this 4-year-old had already decided I was someone who should answer. That was the beginning. Not the adoption. Not the paperwork. Not the court hearings. Just one little girl believing I would come back. And I did. I visited her every Saturday. Then twice a week. Then almost every day. I brought coloring books. Bananas. Hair ribbons. Cheap little stuffed animals. She loved pancakes. She hated peas. She slept with one fist curled beneath her chin. She cried whenever I left. And every time I walked out of that building, I promised myself I would return. Eventually, the caseworker asked me a question that terrified me. "Would you consider becoming her foster parent?" I didn't answer immediately. I went home and looked around my apartment. There was one bedroom. One bathroom. A tiny kitchen. A couch I'd bought secondhand. My savings account wasn't impressive. My job wasn't impressive. My life wasn't impressive. But I had something else. I had room in my heart. So I said yes. The process took months. Background checks. Home inspections. Training. Interviews. References. Questions about my finances. Questions about my childhood. Questions about my marriage. Questions about why a single woman with no children wanted to take responsibility for a child who wasn't hers. One social worker asked me, "Are you prepared for the possibility that her biological family may eventually return?" I looked at her. "Is that likely?" "We don't know." That sentence stayed with me. We don't know. I didn't know then that 18 years later, those words would come back to haunt me. Lily moved into my apartment the following spring. She arrived with 2 garbage bags of clothes and a stuffed rabbit missing one eye. That was everything she owned. I had spent the weekend decorating her room. I painted the walls pale green. I bought a little bed. I put glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. When she walked in, she stopped. She looked at me. "Is this mine?" "Yes." "Forever?" I knelt beside her. "Yes." She hugged me. And I realized that I had just become a mother. Not because a judge had signed anything. Not because we shared blood. Because a little girl had finally found a place where she believed she could unpack her bags. The adoption was finalized almost 2 years later. Lily was 6. She stood beside me in court wearing a blue dress and white shoes. The judge asked her if she wanted me to be her mother. She looked at me. Then she said, "She's already my mom." I had to look down because I couldn't stop crying. The judge smiled. "Then I suppose we have nothing left to decide." That was 18 years ago. And I thought that was the end of Lily's story. I was wrong. Because biological families don't always disappear just because court papers say they should. Sometimes they wait. Sometimes they watch. Sometimes they return when they finally realize what they've lost. And sometimes they return when there's something to gain. Lily grew up. She became funny. Smart. Stubborn. Kind. At 12, she wanted to become a veterinarian. At 16, she decided animals weren't her calling. At 17, she became obsessed with architecture. At 18, she decided she wanted to study environmental engineering. At 20, she changed her major again. At 22, she was finishing college and still didn't know exactly what she wanted to do. And I loved every version of her. I wasn't wealthy. There were years when money was tight. I drove the same old sedan for 11 years. I bought clothes on sale. I packed lunches. I said no to vacations. I worked overtime. But Lily never went to bed wondering whether she was loved. That was the one thing I never let her doubt. Then came the day everything changed. Lily's college graduation. She had earned honors. I had driven 6 hours to be there. We took pictures. We laughed. We cried. We argued about whether I was embarrassing her. Everything felt perfect. Until Lily looked over my shoulder. Her face changed. I followed her gaze. A woman was walking toward us. She was elegant. Probably in her late 40s. Long dark hair. Cream-colored suit. Diamond earrings. 2 men followed behind her. One carried a leather briefcase. The other carried a phone and kept whispering into it. The woman stopped in front of Lily. She looked at my daughter for several seconds. Then she whispered, "Lily." Lily didn't answer. The woman turned toward me. "You must be Evelyn." My stomach tightened. "Who are you?" The woman removed her sunglasses. "My name is Vanessa Hart." I didn't recognize the name. Then she looked at Lily. "I am her mother." Everything around me seemed to disappear. People were laughing. Photographs were being taken. Families were hugging. And I heard nothing except those 4 words. I am her mother. Lily looked at me. I looked at her. Vanessa opened her purse and removed a small envelope. "I've been looking for you for years." Lily's voice shook. "Looking?" Vanessa nodded. "I made mistakes." I almost laughed. Mistakes. That was one word for abandoning a 4-year-old child outside a grocery store. Vanessa reached into the envelope. She pulled out a photograph. It was Lily as a baby. A tiny newborn wrapped in a pink blanket. Lily stared at it. Her lips parted. "I don't remember this." "I know." Vanessa's voice broke. "I didn't expect you to." Then she said something that made me realize this wasn't simply a reunion. "I want to give you something." She handed Lily a set of keys. Lily stared at them. "What are these?" "The keys to your new home." I looked at Vanessa. "What home?" "A house in Palm Beach." She said the number casually. $5 million. Lily actually laughed. "I can't accept this." Vanessa smiled. "You can." "Why?" "Because you're my daughter." I stepped forward. "Then where were you when she needed a mother?" Vanessa's expression hardened for just a second. Then it disappeared. "I was young." "So was I." She looked at me. "You don't understand what happened." "No," I said. "I don't. And that's why I came." Lily stood between us. "Mom." That word hit Vanessa harder than anything else. She looked at Lily. "Yes?" Lily shook her head. "Not you." The woman went pale. I thought that would end the conversation. It didn't. Vanessa smiled again. But this time, there was something calculated in it. "I think you should hear the whole story before you make a decision." Lily looked at me. I nodded. "Then tell her." Vanessa's eyes moved toward the crowd. "Not here." She invited us to dinner. I wanted to refuse. Lily wanted answers. So we went. The restaurant was expensive enough that I felt uncomfortable just touching the menu. Vanessa sat across from us. She didn't order much. She kept watching Lily. Finally, she began. When you were born, I was 26. She told us she came from a wealthy family. Her father owned a massive investment company. Her mother was sick. Her marriage was falling apart. She said she'd been overwhelmed. She said she had made a terrible decision. She said she'd trusted the wrong person. And she said she'd arranged for Lily to stay temporarily with a woman she believed was safe. Temporarily? I asked. Vanessa looked at me. Yes. 2 years? She didn't answer. 5 years? Still nothing. Lily's voice became quieter. How long did you know where I was? Vanessa looked down. I found you when you were 8. My heart stopped. Lily stared at her. You knew? I knew you were safe. That's not what I asked. Vanessa swallowed. I knew where you lived. Lily's eyes filled with tears. And you didn't come? Vanessa reached across the table. Lily pulled her hand away. I was afraid. Of what? My family. Lily stared at her. You were afraid of your family, so you left me? It wasn't that simple. It sounds simple. Vanessa's face tightened. My father would have disowned me. So you let me grow up without you? I believed you were better off. I looked at Lily. She was crying silently. I reached for her hand. Vanessa noticed. I know she loves you, she said. I looked up. Then why are you here? Vanessa hesitated. Because I want my daughter back. There it was. Not a visit. Not closure. A claim. Lily's face hardened. You can't take me back. You're an adult. Then why did you say it like I was a suitcase? Vanessa didn't answer. She instead pushed another folder across the table. Inside were documents. A trust. A family estate. Inheritance papers. Names I didn't recognize. Lily looked at the pages. What is this? You are entitled to a portion of the Hart family estate. I looked at Vanessa. Why? Because you're my daughter. Again. That phrase. It sounded less like love every time she said it. More like ownership. Then Lily noticed something. Why now? Vanessa looked away. Because my father recently changed his will. The room became very quiet. I understood. Lily understood too. So this isn't about me. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Of course it's about you. Then why did you wait 18 years? I told you. I was afraid. Afraid of losing money? Vanessa looked offended. No. But she didn't sound convincing. Lily closed the folder. I'm going home. Vanessa stood. Wait. Lily stopped. I have something else. She pulled out a photograph. It showed Lily at 8 years old. Standing in front of our apartment. Someone had taken the picture from across the street. My blood ran cold. Where did you get that? Vanessa didn't answer. Lily stared at the photograph. When was this taken? Years ago. Who took it? Vanessa looked at me. A private investigator. I stood. You had my daughter watched? I needed to know she was safe. You knew she was safe. Vanessa's expression changed. I needed proof. Proof of what? She looked at Lily. That you'd become someone worth bringing home. Lily's face went completely blank. I felt something inside me break. Not because Vanessa had insulted me. Because she had reduced my daughter to an investment. A test. A future asset. Lily stood. I'm not going anywhere with you. Vanessa's voice softened. You don't have to decide tonight. Lily looked at her. I already did. We left. For the next 2 weeks, Vanessa didn't contact us. I thought perhaps she had finally accepted Lily's decision. Then a black SUV pulled into my driveway. A man in a suit got out. He handed Lily an invitation. Your grandfather would like to meet you. Lily looked at me. I said nothing. She opened it. Her biological grandfather wanted to meet her. His name was Harold Hart. He was 79. One of the richest men in the state. And apparently, he had been told about Lily only 6 months earlier. That made no sense. If Vanessa had known about Lily for years, why had her father only recently learned the truth? Lily agreed to meet him. I went with her. Harold lived in a mansion overlooking the ocean. The house was enormous. But the man who greeted us looked tired. He didn't look like the billionaire I'd imagined. He looked like an old man who had spent too many years regretting things. He stared at Lily. Then he whispered, You have your grandmother's eyes. Lily didn't respond. He looked at me. You must be Evelyn. Yes. He extended his hand. Thank you. I didn't take it. For what? For raising her. That was the first thing anyone from that family had said that felt sincere. He lowered his hand. I deserve that. Lily sat down. Did you know about me? Harold's eyes dropped. No. Do you believe Mom? He took a long breath. I believe she hid you. Why? Because I would have demanded the truth. Would you have taken me away? No. He looked directly at her. I would have made sure you had a choice. Lily looked at me. Then back at him. Why did she come now? Harold was silent. Finally, he said. Because I changed my will. I felt my stomach tighten. There it was again. Money. Inheritance. Control. Harold continued. I discovered that Vanessa had been hiding financial problems. Lily frowned. What kind? Millions in debt. Vanessa's entire story shifted in my mind. Harold explained that Vanessa had spent years maintaining a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She had properties. Luxury cars. Business investments. And enormous personal debts. If Harold died without changing his estate plan, Vanessa would inherit control over several major assets. But after discovering what she had done to Lily, Harold had changed his will. He had created a separate trust for Lily. And that trust was worth more than $20 million. Lily stared at him. That's why she wants me. Harold shook his head. I don't know. But I did. And so did Lily. The next morning, Vanessa called. Did your grandfather tell you everything? Lily answered. Enough. Vanessa's voice became cold. You need to understand that family matters are complicated. Lily laughed bitterly. I understand that money matters. That's unfair. Is it? I came back because I love you. You came back after finding out Grandpa changed his will. Silence. Then Vanessa said. You have no idea what I've sacrificed. Lily's voice broke. Neither do you. She hung up. That night, Lily came into my bedroom. She sat beside me. Mom? Yes? What if she really does love me? I looked at her. Then let her prove it. How? Without money. Lily thought about that. Then she said. Do you think I should meet her again? I wanted to say no. Every part of me wanted to protect her. But I'd spent 18 years teaching her how to make her own decisions. So I said, yes. She looked surprised. Really? On one condition. What? You don't go because she wants you to. Lily smiled. I go because I want answers. Exactly. The second meeting happened at a private club. This time Vanessa wasn't alone. There were lawyers, financial advisors, a family attorney, and a man I had never seen before. Vanessa introduced him as her husband. He barely acknowledged Lily. Then the lawyer opened a folder. Miss Parker, your mother wants to establish a relationship with you and transfer certain assets into your name. Lily stared at him. What assets? Property. How much? The lawyer named a figure. $10 million. I expected Lily to react. She didn't. She simply asked, what do you want in return? The lawyer looked confused. Nothing. Then why are there lawyers? Vanessa interrupted. Because you're family. Lily looked at her. That's not an answer. The lawyer shifted. Finally, he admitted that several family trusts required cooperation from Lily. Not legally. Politically. Her public acceptance of Vanessa would help stabilize the family's reputation. And Harold's advisors were watching. Lily stood. So you want me to be your daughter in public? Vanessa looked hurt. No. Yes. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Lily turned toward me. I want to leave. We stood. Then the husband spoke. You should think carefully before throwing away an opportunity like this. Lily turned. What opportunity? Financial security. She smiled sadly. I've had that for 18 years. He laughed. You call living in that little house financial security? I stepped forward. Careful. Lily touched my arm. No, Mom. Then she looked at him. You're right. He smiled. Lily continued. That house is small. She paused. But when I was 4, I didn't care how small it was. She looked at Vanessa. I cared that somebody opened the door. Vanessa looked down. That was the first time I saw shame on her face. But it didn't last. 3 days later, Vanessa made a public announcement. She told the press that she had reunited with her daughter after 18 years. There were photographs, interviews, articles. People called it a miracle. A family reunion. A story of forgiveness. I watched one interview on television. Vanessa cried. She said she had never stopped loving Lily. She said she had prayed for her. She said she was grateful to Evelyn for caring for her daughter. Then the reporter asked, do you hope Lily will eventually come home? Vanessa smiled. I already believe she has. I turned off the television. Lily sat beside me. She's telling everyone I'm hers. I looked at her. She doesn't get to define your relationship. Lily nodded. Then she said, maybe I should stop fighting. What do you mean? Maybe I should just take the money. I stared at her. She looked exhausted. Maybe if I take everything, then I can walk away. I understood. She wasn't tempted by wealth. She was tempted by freedom. For the first time, she could afford never to depend on anyone again. I said, if you take it because you want it. She looked at me. Not because you think you owe them? Exactly. She nodded. Then she asked, would you be disappointed? I almost cried. No. Even if I moved away? No. Even if I spent the money? No. Even if I became close to them? I swallowed. That one might hurt. She smiled. But you'd still let me? That's what mothers do. She hugged me. I love you. I love you too. She whispered. You're my home. I didn't know then how important those words would become. A week later, Harold invited us to his office. This time, he didn't have lawyers waiting. He had one folder. He pushed it toward Lily. Your mother wants something from you. I know. I want to give you something too. Lily opened the folder. It wasn't a trust. It wasn't property. It was a letter. Written by Harold. He explained that he had spent decades building his fortune. He had believed money could protect his family. He had been wrong. He wrote that after discovering what Vanessa had done, he had considered cutting her off completely. But he decided that wouldn't fix anything. Instead, he changed his will. Lily would receive a substantial inheritance. But there was one condition. She had to be free to reject it. Harold looked at her. I don't want your loyalty. Lily looked surprised. I don't want you to love me because I'm rich. He glanced at me. And I don't want you to hate your mother because of me. Lily's eyes filled. Why are you giving me this? Because you're my granddaughter. Then he smiled. And because you deserve the chance to make choices I couldn't give you when you were a child. Lily cried. So did I. But there was still one problem. Vanessa. She was furious. She confronted Harold. Then she confronted Lily. Finally, she came to my house. She stood on my porch wearing an expensive coat. I opened the door. She looked at me. You've turned her against me. I almost laughed. No. You have. I didn't have to. She stared at me. What does that mean? It means you left her with nothing but questions. She found her own answers. Vanessa's face tightened. You think you're better than me? No. I think you're trying to replace me. I looked at her. You cannot replace someone who wasn't there. That sentence silenced her. She looked away. Then she said something unexpected. I regret it. I waited. I regret leaving her. Good. I think about it every day. Then tell her. I have. No. You've told her why you left. You haven't told her that you were wrong. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. You don't know what I lived through. No. You don't know what my father was like. No. You don't know what it cost me. I nodded. You're right. Then I said. But neither does Lily. Vanessa looked at me. She only knows what it cost her. That finally broke her. She cried. Not dramatically. Not for cameras. She just stood on my porch and cried. I didn't hug her. I didn't forgive her. But I let her cry. Then she whispered. Does she hate me? No. How do you know? Because she keeps asking why you left. Vanessa looked confused. What does that mean? It means she still wants an answer. She wiped her face. Will she ever forgive me? I thought about it. I don't know. For once, Vanessa didn't demand an answer. She nodded. Then she left. Months passed. Lily accepted the inheritance. But she didn't move into the mansion. She didn't buy a sports car. She didn't start wearing designer clothes. She hired a financial advisor. Paid off her student loans. Bought a modest house near her future job. And then she did something that surprised everyone. She created a foundation for children aging out of foster care. She used part of her inheritance to help them pay security deposits, tuition, transportation, and emergency expenses. When I asked why, she said, "Because I know what it feels like to have nowhere to go." She never changed her last name. She stayed Lily Parker. One afternoon, she came home and found me making dinner. She opened the refrigerator. "Mom." "What?" "Why do we still have this terrible coffee?" "Because I like it." "You don't." "How dare you?" She laughed. That laugh sounded exactly like the 4-year-old outside the grocery store. The little girl who had asked a stranger for a sandwich. The little girl who had once asked me if her bedroom was hers forever. She was 22 now. And she had millions of dollars. But she still came home and complained about my coffee. That was when I realized something. Money had changed Lily's circumstances. It hadn't changed who she was. One evening, Vanessa came over. Lily agreed to see her. I stayed in the kitchen. They talked for nearly 2 hours. When Vanessa left, Lily came into the kitchen. She sat down. "How did it go?" I asked. Lily shrugged. "Hard." "Good hard or bad hard?" "Both." I waited. She apologized. I nodded. "Did you forgive her?" Lily stared at the table. "I don't know." "You don't have to." "I know." She looked at me. She asked if she could be my mother. My chest tightened. "What did you say?" I told her no. I swallowed. Lily continued. "But I told her she could be my biological mother." I nodded slowly. "That's fair." She cried. "I imagine." Then she asked if she could be something else. "What?" "Someone I know." I smiled. "What did you say?" I said maybe. And maybe was enough. Because family isn't always a clean story. Sometimes people hurt you. Sometimes they return. Sometimes they apologize too late. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And sometimes love means letting someone choose a relationship with the people who hurt them, even when every protective instinct inside you wants to say no. A year later, Harold became seriously ill. Lily visited him. Vanessa was there. Richard was there. The whole family sat together. Harold took Lily's hand. "I wish I'd known you sooner." Lily smiled. "I wish you had too." He looked at me. Then he said, "I owe you more than I can ever repay." I shook my head. "No." He looked surprised. "I didn't raise her for money." "I know." "I didn't raise her because I expected anything." "I know." "I raised her because she needed someone." He squeezed my hand. "Then thank you." I smiled. "You're welcome." Harold died 3 months later. His funeral was enormous. People talked about his business empire, his investments, his philanthropy, his billions. But Lily stood beside me and whispered, "I don't care how much money he had. What do you care about?" She looked toward the photograph of him. "I wish he'd gotten to know my favorite cereal." I laughed through my tears. "That was not what I expected." She smiled. "He would have hated it." "He would have." We both laughed. And for a moment, the billionaire family didn't feel like billionaires. They just felt like people. Broken people. Trying to figure out how to love one another after too much damage had already been done. Vanessa never became Lily's mother. Not in the way Lily meant the word. But they slowly built something else. A relationship. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. There were still painful conversations. There were still questions without answers. But there was no longer a lie between them. And that mattered. As for me, I went back to my ordinary life. I still drove my old car. I still shopped for groceries. I still complained when Lily left dishes in the sink. She bought me a new dishwasher one Christmas. I refused. She bought it anyway. "You're impossible," she said. "I raised you." Exactly. Then one morning, almost 2 years after the graduation where Vanessa first appeared, Lily came into my kitchen holding an envelope. "What is that?" She smiled. "Open it." I did. Inside was a photograph. It was the two of us. Taken years earlier. Lily was about 6. She was missing one front tooth. I was holding a birthday cake. On the back, Lily had written something. I turned it over. It said, "You stayed." I looked at her. "What is this?" "Something I wanted you to have." I started crying. She hugged me. "Mom." "Yeah? You know what the weirdest part is?" "What?" "I used to think being adopted meant I was lucky because somebody chose me." I smiled. "That's not weird." She shook her head. "No." She wiped her eyes. I was wrong. I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She smiled. "I was lucky because I got to choose you too." That sentence stayed with me. Because for 18 years, I thought I was the one who had rescued Lily. The truth was more complicated. She had rescued me too. She gave my ordinary life a purpose I hadn't known I was missing. She taught me that motherhood isn't proven by blood. It isn't measured by money. It isn't secured by a last name. It's built in tiny moments. The lunch packed before school. The fever watched through the night. The college applications. The arguments. The apologies. The cheap birthday cakes. The rides home. The door left unlocked because you know someone is coming back. And sometimes, motherhood is simply answering when a frightened little girl asks, "Are you coming back?" Yes. Always. 18 years after I found Lily begging strangers for food, her biological mother tried to give her millions. But the money didn't win. Not because Lily rejected it. She didn't. She accepted the money. She used it wisely. She built a future with it. She helped children who were once as vulnerable as she had been. But she never confused money with love. And neither did I. Vanessa once asked me why I didn't fight harder to keep Lily away from her. I told her the truth. Because Lily isn't something I own. She looked at me. "Then what is she?" I smiled. "She's my daughter." There is a difference. A child isn't a possession. A mother isn't a title. And family isn't determined by who has the most money. It's determined by who stays when staying is difficult. Who comes back when the night is long. Who remembers what you were like before you became successful. Who knows your favorite cereal. Who remembers the scar on your knee. Who sits beside your hospital bed. Who celebrates your victories. Who holds you when you fail. Who tells you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. And most importantly, who opens the door. Lily once asked me if her room was hers forever. I told her yes. I meant it. Years later, she still has a key. Not to a $5 million mansion. Not to a billionaire's estate. To my little house. The same house where we argued about homework. The same kitchen where we celebrated birthdays. The same living room where she once fell asleep against my shoulder. She doesn't need to live there. She has her own beautiful home now. She has a career. She has money. She has choices. But whenever she comes to visit, she still uses her key. She walks in without knocking. She opens my refrigerator. She complains about my coffee. And she calls. Mom, I'm home. And every single time, I answer the same way. Welcome home, sweetheart. Because 18 years ago, a little girl was sitting outside a grocery store asking strangers for food. She didn't know where she belonged. She didn't know who would keep her. She didn't know that one day she'd become a brilliant young woman with a fortune of her own. She only knew that she was hungry. And lonely. And afraid. I couldn't give her $1 billion that day. I couldn't give her a mansion. I couldn't give her a famous last name. I couldn't give her back the years she had lost. But I could buy her a sandwich. I could sit beside her. I could come back the next day. And the day after that. And the day after that. Sometimes we imagine that changing someone's life requires something enormous. It doesn't. Sometimes it starts with a sandwich. Sometimes it starts with opening a door. Sometimes it starts with saying, "You can stay." And sometimes, 18 years later, you discover that the child you saved became the person who saved you right back. That is what happened to me. I didn't adopt a 4-year-old because I thought I could give her a perfect life. I adopted her because she needed someone. And 18 years later, when her billionaire mother came back with millions and tried to convince her that blood was stronger than everything else, Lily finally understood something I had spent her entire childhood teaching her. You can inherit money. You can inherit a name. You can inherit a house. You can inherit a fortune. But you cannot inherit love. Love has to be earned. And the people who earn it are usually not the ones standing outside with a contract. They're the ones sitting beside you in the rain. They're the ones who stay. And after everything that happened, Lily never forgot who stayed.